Welcome to everybody for this Policing Performance Committee. We've got quite a busy agenda today, lots of very interesting papers, but we'll try and keep to time. I'll do my best to chair it appropriately, and we'll move through at the appropriate rate. So if we go straight to section 1, which is the standing items, 1.1, which is a welcome and apologies. I do have an apology from Martin Smith, but the paper he would have been speaking to is going to be spoken to by Amanda Coulthard. That's on the public polling. I've also got a couple of notes here. I believe the ACC Ritchie has to be away for a meeting early this afternoon, so we will make sure that if members are all in agreement, if necessary, we can bring his item forward. And we've also got a change to 3.4 and 3.5, where Chief Superintendent Greg Banks is going to be replaced by Chief Superintendent Paul Wilson. Other than that, do we have any other apologies? Okay, thank you. Are there any declarations of interest or connections that anybody needs to highlight? 1.3, these are the public minutes from the June committee meeting, which are for approval. So subject to any comments or any changes that are necessary, can we approve these minutes? Okay, approved. Thank you. Moving on to 1.4, which is the action log and any matters arising. Within this, we have 10 actions which are proposed for closure, and we also have 5 actions that remain open. I've got a little note here that 2 of the actions that are proposed for closure, which are 004 and 007, we've had a very useful update on those. Particularly 007, we may wish to wait until the end of the paper on that before we agree to close it or not. And 004, do members have any comments on that in particular about whether to close it or, given the work that's ongoing, to leave it open at this time? Any thoughts from members? Tom?
It's the action in relation to local insights is proposed for closure. I'd like us to wait to the end of this discussion, because also in the performance report, I'd like to discuss it there too, and then a decision can be made after that. Okay.
So the 2 that are under consideration, we'll come back to those at the end, but other than that, everybody's content with the closures and those that are remaining open. Okay, thank you. So we come to section 2, which is operational policing policy, and the first paper 2.1, which is cyber kiosk update, which ACC Andy Freeburn is going to present, and this is for discussion. Just to say that myself and Michelle, we had a very useful discussion around cyber kiosk with ACC Freeburn about lessons learnt and delivery of outcomes. And I'm sure that he'll touch on that as we go through this paper. So over to you, ACC Freeburn.
Good morning, Chair and members, and thank you for the opportunity to present an update on digital triage devices, which are sometimes referred to as cyber kiosks. So the paper provides a detailed summary of the management and the oversight and the safeguards which are built into the police use of cyber kiosks. And I know the committee are aware that this is done on a case-by-case basis and through our cybercrime gateway, where specialist trained officers follow strict protocols to provide an initial triage of a digital device and establish if there's any evidence present, with the idea that we can identify, we can process information at an earlier stage in the investigation and hopefully negate the requirement for a full forensic examination. So Appendix A provides the locations of the 41 cyber kiosks which exist across Scotland, Appendix B outlines our gateway process and how devices are approved or rejected. And then Appendix C provides a range of the management information, and that's part of our public commitment to publish our data relating to the use of the system. And I'll maybe pull out a couple of specific points, Chair, from the paper. And the first is at paragraph 2. And we've provided some additional context of when we examine devices belonging to either victims or witnesses. Because when we were preparing this paper in August, we looked through the data from the previous month in July 2023. And we found that out of the 401 devices we'd examined that month, only 16 of them belong to a victim or a witness. So that's less than 4%. So it does remain exceptional. And from the 16 that we did examine, 9 were seized under common law powers, 7 were with the consent of the owner. So no cases of us seeking a warrant for those devices. And that's fairly standard, Chair. We generally use cyber chaos to seek evidence of an offence from a suspect or accused. And the second point I was going to tease out is just in relation to that management information, because whilst we do publish the range of data at Appendix C, there is unfortunately no single search in Police Scotland's system that provides all that we would like. Future systems, maybe through our national rollout of COSLA, the core operating solution, may make this possible, but we accept that the inability to easily measure how quickly we return returning devices, for example, was an omission in the initial programme, something that we have learnt from and addressed in our contemporary programmes, such as Kate FM, which I presented to the committee at the last meeting. So what's next for Cyber Kiosk? And obviously it's been 3 years since Police Scotland introduced this capability. And as with all technologies, they grow, they developed over time. So we are currently have a project looking at how we might network the 41 computer terminals, because at the moment they're all standalone. So that means if we wish to do a software update or a patch or even download that management information, someone has to drive around all of those 41 terminals across Scotland. But it's important to note, and we've emphasised at paragraph 2.14, the networking of cyber kiosks would not in any way change the management, the safeguards, and no device data from seized devices would be shared between kiosks. I think the future of cyber kiosks will be looking at whether we can join all of this up and integrate it into the broader digital evidence capability, how we gather that and how we share that with COPFS. But please be assured that any changes that we would make will only be after following our rights-based pathway that I presented to the committee at the last meeting, and only after full consultation with this committee and key stakeholders such as the Biometrics Commissioner. So in summary, Chair, cyber kiosks remain a very valuable capability in our fight against cybercrime, and they massively assist us in keeping the people of Scotland safe. And we really appreciate the importance of maintaining public confidence in our use of these systems. And that's why we publicly publish our data on cyber kiosk. It demonstrates our desire to be open and transparent in creating that assurance. And it's worth mentioning that in our recent conversation with you, Chair, there was a suggestion that we should maybe publish all of our process and standards and indeed provide commitments to the public in the form of a code of practice or something of that nature. And I've been really taken by that suggestion. We're currently developing that and indeed pretty much have all that in place already. And as you know, cyber kiosks is just one part of the broader Policing in a Digital World programme, where we are tackling online fraud, online child sexual abuse. We're increasing our digital forensic capability and the accreditation of that. And if the committee found it helpful, I could bring back future updates on the broader work of the programme. Thank you for the committee's time this morning, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions or views. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the paper, and it's always illuminated by it being highlighted by those responsible for the paper. So thank you. Open to questions now. I've got some hands up here. The first person I have is Board Member Michelle Miller, and then I have Councillor Maureen Chalmers. Michelle.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Andrew, for the report. I think it's really helpful, and really appreciate the approach to the lessons learnt in terms of some of the conversations that we've had here at this committee and elsewhere. And you mentioned the meeting we had. So all of that I think is really positive. I'm very supportive of the notion of the networking. And particularly welcome your reference to applying the kind of the maybe not yet finalised, but principles behind the code of practice. So all of that is really welcome. I just wonder about it seems like a really good idea to network, because as you say, the idea of driving around 41 locations doesn't seem sensible in this day and age. Could you give me a sense of timescale for that, first of all? And then secondly, following on from that, you make reference to the financial implications of that, but there isn't any detail around it. And given the current circumstances and likely future circumstances in relation to our financial position, I'm just wondering how something like this will feature in terms of the prioritisation and the discussions that are around in terms of spend. So just something on those two would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions and for your broader comments as well. Yes, just in relation to the networks, I mean, that is something that we're trying to deliver within this financial year. I mean, obviously we do have quite a few financial challenges, but this is one that we would really be putting forward, that we could offset any sort of software update that would allow that to happen with the fact that somebody's got to physically drive. And you can see in the appendix, I mean, this goes right to the top of Scotland, to the top of the country. So there's a huge cost even just in the fuel and the time of somebody involved in that. So I would be confident that we should be able to do it, and costs for that one will be offset. So timescales we're still working on, but I'm hoping this financial year. Thank you.
Thank you. That's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chalmers.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Andrew, for the paper. I think it's acknowledged in the paper, but you reinforced it there in your presentation of the paper, that we need to ensure public confidence is maintained in the use of the technologies, and that the benefits and safeties are clearly articulated. So are there any plans for an independent review in the short to medium term of how cyber kiosks are being used? These are the privacy and public confidence bit, perhaps by HMICS and the Information Commissioner.
Thank you for the question. It was a bit premature for us to report here, but we recently have been inspected by ICO actually over the summer months, and specifically into the use. I think from what we have heard verbally, that sounds like it will be quite positive, but I was just going to reserve anything formal until it actually seen the final report and the final detail, and really happy to share it with the committee once received.
Oh, great stuff. Thanks, Andrew. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anybody have any further questions on this paper? No. Well, I think that was a very positive paper and a very positive update. I think one of the themes that will probably come out across the day today is improving not only effectiveness but efficiency within Police Scotland to meet the financial challenges. And I think we're looking forward to seeing if and when that networking is rolled out across the organisation. And I appreciate you said it would be, the cost would likely be offset, for the new software against savings and things like fuel, but also the big cost, which is people's time. But in the longer term, hopefully that can return as an ongoing saving in the organisation. But I'm sure you'll give us more detail on that in the future. And very pertinent question there from Councillor Chalmers around maintaining public confidence. This is a hugely complex area, and it's important that confidence is maintained. And we'll look forward to a future update when you get the full report from the ICO. So thank you for that. And with that, we shall move on to the next agenda item, which is the naloxone update, and ACC Gary Ritchie is going to update us on this, and this is a paper again for discussion.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. Really happy to be bringing this paper here today. This is by prior agreement that we would update the board when we had finalised the rollout of naloxone, which we did on the 31st of August to coincide with International Overdose Awareness Day. And I think the board is well aware of the journey that we've had with naloxone, but having now rolled it out to every operational officer, up to the rank of inspector, which is around 12,000 police officers. You know, we are now, as far as I believe, the only country in the world where every single one of its operational police officers carries and uses naloxone. And we're certainly the only police service in the UK that does that. We've used naloxone on about 350 occasions, as you'll see in the paper. There's been 350 interventions. Undoubtedly some lives saved in there through the actions of the police officers. The issues that we did have to address as we went through the programme are covered in there. I don't want to rehearse them as well, but I think the major concerns about, you know, not having support at the ambulance service and some potential backlash for police officers if they used naloxone and the person died or subsequently died. All of those have been addressed. As you'll see, unfortunately, there's been 8 occasions where the use of naloxone hasn't made the difference, and I think in most of those occasions the person was already dead, unfortunately, or their illness or their condition was not caused by opioids. There's some commentary in there from some of our partners and some of our officers just to highlight how positively this has been received across the organisation, across partners and across the community. So that's really it. I'm happy to take any questions, but I think a real positive for Police Scotland over the past few years.
Yeah, thank you for the paper, and it is a positive. We'll maybe have further comment on this. Could I open it up to questions? I've got 2 people want to come in. First of all, I've got board member Tom Halpin, and then I have another board member, Michelle Miller. So Tom.
So first, really commend this report and appreciate the hugely positive work that's been done here with it. Naloxone, I'm really encouraged by it. So thank you to all the officers who have carried it. Today's announcement, the last few days' announcements about the possibility of safe consumption rooms as well in Scotland, and obviously the preventative issue with naloxone. Sort of checking in terms of the demand on policing that they're not the health intervention for where health services should rightly already be there. Is there some reassurance you can give? Is there early discussions around that? ACC Ritchie give us reassurance in terms of a further demand on policing in a health environment.
Around about naloxone and safe drug consumption facilities, or just about naloxone?
The safe consumption facilities.
Okay, but I mean, first of all, with naloxone, as you know, Tom, that was one of the issues that was raised by the Staff Association. You know, this was mission creep, and that police officers would be used instead of ambulances, and it's not the case. I think in every single one of the occasions where police officers have used naloxone, they would have been there anyway. You know, it's about them having a first aid intervention to help them through the normal course of their duties. The other issue about that is part of the process is before the officers use naloxone, they call for an ambulance, and the ambulance, because we're dealing with an unconscious casualty, sometimes a casualty is unconscious and not breathing, that's the highest priority for the ambulance, and it's been really pretty universal that the officers have reported that the ambulance has turned up very, very quickly. I think we've got an attendance time on average of less than 6 minutes or something like that. So I'm satisfied, you know, that there's not any creep in there, that what we're doing is doing first aid for an individual, which we would have done otherwise. The only difference with naloxone is there's a better chance of the individual surviving, which ultimately will reduce demand on us and in the health services. So that's it as far as naloxone is concerned. And safe drug consumption facility, that I mean our approach to that in terms of trying to support it is really to kind of stay a bit away from it unless we need to be. There'll be no proactive policing of the facility. It's a health facility at the end of the day. So there's going to be no proactive policing round about that. It'll be for the division to obviously assess the threat and risk that surrounds the centre. But we've provided some operational guidance and some policy guidance to our officers around that as well. So I don't see that having really a high demand for us whatsoever in respect of its use, and it's not really been a concern. However, we will monitor it. There may be some public pushback on it, and around the communities, we might get that kind of demand, but that's a typical policing demand rather than health demand.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Gary, for the report. Hugely positive, really encouraging to see. It's really good to see officers' comments as well. I mean, I think that really kind of brings the report to life, and that's so it's all really good. And I don't know if this might just be a drafting issue, but I'm just not quite clear. So it says the carrying of naloxone is mandatory for officers up to inspector, which is great. But then throughout the report, it talks about officers being keen to receive it, or I can't remember exactly. So officers' eagerness to be equipped continues to be demonstrated by the number of requests received and so on. So it's so we've got the mandatory bit on the one hand and then requests on the other hand. So could you just clarify that for me, please?
Yeah, that was just because of the progressive nature of the rollout. We didn't do every division at the one time. What we're finding was people who are waiting for it were actually saying, can we not just get it just now? We know how to use it. It's a nasal spray. We can do the Moodle. Why do we have to wait and do one division at a time? But that was more to do with the supplies issues with the naloxone itself. So that's what that's representing there. It's not a request.
Okay, thank you for that. That's clear. Board member Mary Pitt-Caithley wants to come in.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Gary, for the report. And I agree with Michelle, the addition of the comments and the testimonials really does bring the report to light, so that's really helpful. But it's good to note that in less than a year, you've managed to do this full rollout and to get the support of the Police Federation for this as well, so very well done. Can I just ask, having rolled it out now to everybody, what is the requirement for ongoing training for officers? Is there something that would need to be put in place to ensure that is kept up to date?
I think the ongoing training is around about first aid when dealing with a casualty potentially who's an overdose, rather than naloxone itself, which is very simple to use, Mary. It's the middle